It is the 9 o'clock news, local edition on Rock 93.7. Sitting down this week, I have with me, I was going to say a solo artist, and you kind of are, but you also use a band name. So we'll go with your band name. Gretchens is what you go by.
Mm-hmm.
But your name is Lindsay.
That's right.
And it's just basically you and an instrument for this, or?
Yeah, actually just me in the studio playing lots of instruments, and my producer who played lots of instruments, and a drummer who played the drums on several tracks. So
you use session musicians then to kind of help out a little bit.
Well,
at least for the drums.
Yeah, well, actually, his name is Ira Elliott, and he plays in the band Not a Surf, which is one of my favorite bands. So I was really, really fortunate to get to work with him. It was kind of a special thing for me. He wasn't just a studio musician. It's one of my favorite bands, and he was able to be involved with my album. So I was thrilled about that.
How would you characterize your music? What category would you put you in if you had to?
Yeah, if I had to, I guess it would be alternative rock. It's really influenced by 90s alternative music and power pop. But people have told me they hear all kinds of genres going on in it, even from Americana to jazzy stuff. So it's kind of hard to classify for me, but I just go with indie most of the time because
I think that probably fits it about best. I was listening to it and trying to determine, well, whereabout would we put her? Would we say that she's Americana? Not so much. Would we say that she's not so much? But I think alternative pretty well covers the category for the most part. And you can hear some of your influences, which we'll get to a little bit later, because one of your influences is also instrumental in you putting together your album.
Yes.
So that's kind of a unique story that I'm looking forward to getting to a little bit later on.
Okay.
Gretchen's Will, in the name itself, even has a story that goes with it. So we got a few things that we're going to talk about this evening. Whereabouts are you originally from?
I'm actually from Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to school. And I did live in Nashville for a few years during and after college. And actually now I live in Westmoreland, which is it's about an hour and 15 minutes from Cookeville. So
you're willing to travel a little bit to share your music, so that's always a good thing. You get out and do some performances, just you and your guitar?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that, and I would like to do some more. Just solo acoustic shows, since I don't have a live backing band at the moment.
So how did you get your start into music?
Well, actually, my mom was a country music singer. Her name was Diane Davis, and I grew up around music constantly. So I had that influence from an early age. But it was when I was a teenager, I was 14, when I started playing guitar and actually focusing on writing my own music, and kind of went a different route with the style altogether.
Completely different route.
Yeah.
Right? Now we're making kind of alternative, and I was looking at your website and your bio information, and it kind of says classical.
Yeah.
Alternative and classical, unless you're talking about bands like maybe Apocalyptica, who like to match up a little bit of classical instruments. You really don't hear those terms married very often.
Yeah, it was just I went through, I guess, a phase, I don't know, in late high school and through college when I studied voice, and I was interested in classical and opera, and I had some voice lessons and was kind of toying with the idea of pursuing opera, because I do really love it. It may not show up in the music very much, but it was, I feel like it was fairly influential because I just have a big appreciation for so much classical music. I mean, it's not my top style, but it's way up there. I definitely love it.
Well, you have an album together, and as we're talking, it's in the alternative realm, and you've got some songs. I thought we might talk about a couple of those tonight, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
How about if we take a look at One More Mile?
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about how that song come together.
Well, actually, that is the oldest song on the album. I wrote it when I was 17, which was quite a while ago. I wrote it in my first semester of college, and it was just one that I sort of hung on to for all those years. And I changed it up a little bit for the album. I ended up rewriting some old songs for the album to, I guess, improve them after the perspective of 10 years coming back to old songs and rewriting them. But it's pretty much the same as it was when I was originally writing it at the age of 17. It has to do with I actually changed my college that I was going to, and it was going through the pressure and the uncertainties of not knowing what I wanted to do next in my life.
So you say it's your oldest song, and reworked it a little bit. What is that like, taking a song and just kind of deciding that you're going to have to revamp that? You know what? Don't answer that.
Okay.
Because we'll actually come back to that question. How about if we go ahead and take a listen now to the song? It is One More Mile. It's Gretchen's Will on the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. It is the 9 o'clock news local edition with Gretchen's Will as our in-studio guest this week. And we are speaking with the proud member and pretty much the only member. Lindsay is talking with us tonight about putting together her music, getting things going. We've already heard one of your songs. Now, Gretchen's Will, interesting name.
Yeah.
And it's kind of borrowed in a way.
Right.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, it comes from the name of an art song by Schubert that is in German, and I would butcher the pronunciation if I tried, but it translates to Gretchen at the Spinning Wheel. And it was one of those songs that I came in contact while I was, really into classical. And it is about a character in the novel Faust. And she is going through this grieving process, and she's heartbroken, and she's at the spinning wheel. And the way the song is written, you hear the motion of the spinning wheel in the melody of the piano. And to me, it just represents perfect songwriting. It's an example of as a good a song as you could ever have, because it represents so much about the emotion in the sound of the song. And I was so inspired by the idea of the character of Gretchen, as well as the fact that the spinning wheel almost becomes like a musical instrument in the song. And for me, that's kind of like I represent myself, or I associate myself with Gretchen, and my guitar is sort of like the spinning wheel. If that kind of convoluted metaphor makes sense.
Actually, it does.
Okay.
It fits quite nicely. So a bit of an homage to that.
Yeah.
Kind of tying your roots together, because you, as you said, you had love for classical and opera, and even for a time, I think you tried out for a little bit of that.
Yeah. Actually, I sang with the Nashville Symphony Chorus for one season, and I did some opera recitals and auditions and things like that. But I realized at some point in the process that I was actually told that my voice is probably not big enough for opera, which is okay. That's fine. I can still appreciate it. I don't have to be the one singing it. So it was a learning experience, and I'm glad that I did get to experience it.
So you've kind of refocused yourself and gone back to kind of where you started in the whole writing songs and putting together this album that you've got. You said that you took some of your songs, kind of dusted them off a little bit. So how is it to look at younger you's perspective? I guess that's a good way to put that, and just kind of go through your eyes now and go, yeah, does it feel like it adds a level of maturity to the music as you rework it, or? Yeah,
actually, in some ways, going back to the old songs and recording them, it was sort of felt like I was recording someone else's music. It was almost like I was recording a cover song at that time. It was kind of interesting. But I sort of was able to distance myself from that emotion that I had that inspired the song initially. I was able to look at it a little bit less personally and more, what will make this a better song? Not being, not changing the meaning of the song or anything, still staying true to the original intent, but distancing myself and hopefully with a lot more maturity, making the song better in general.
Well, we'll take a look at your process, how songs come about now versus then, and talk about another one of your songs, too, as we continue on with the 9 o'clock news local edition here on Rock 93.7. It is the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. Tonight, sitting down, and we are talking with Gretchen's Will, getting to know a little bit about the music and where it comes from. We've described that you kind of fall into the category of alternative, maybe a little bit on the poppy side, and in fact, that's kind of how your album came about, with some of that influence.
Right.
You've got in your bio, not to name drop, but we do that from time to time on the show.
Oh, that's fine.
You went an unorthodox way to get your music out there as far as getting attention. You reached out to a member of the Posies.
Right. Yeah.
Now, you're a fan of the Posies, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah. Huge fan.
What are some of the other bands that you're into?
Oh, wow. My most influential artist for me as a teenager, and still to this day, is Matthew Sweet. He was the main influence that made me want to learn to play guitar and write songs. So, and to this day is still one of my biggest influences. And obviously the Posies and the band Not a Surf I mentioned earlier. I love those two bands. Some of the other artists that I really liked in the 90s and early 2000s, I loved Elliott Smith. I was a massive fan of Elliott Smith. And I love other kind of power pop bands like Fountains of Wayne. I love them. Now, my music probably doesn't sound anything like these influences, but they're the ones that I listen to the most and
draw inspiration from and things of that
yeah.
nature. So, well, the Posies, though, I bring those up because you covered one of their songs,
right,
and actually sent it off. What? How did you decide that was going to be a good idea? Did you?
It was very spur of the moment, and it's not something I would normally do. I mean, it's not in my personality to be that forward and bold, I guess, but it was basically on Twitter. I just sent it to one of the members, Ken Stringfellow. I one day just decided, this sounds pretty decent, maybe, and maybe he would like to hear it. And he's pretty active on social media and fairly approachable on Twitter and Facebook and things of that nature. So I sent it in a tweet and said, here's this cover of your song. Would you listen to it? And he came back and was very enthusiastically supportive of it and said it was great. And I was like, okay, that's the encouragement that I needed, that I was kind of on the fence about whether I was even going to continue to do anything with my own original music. I'll see if he is interested in producing my album, because most of the time that's what he is doing, is producing other people's
He's
albums.
produced a few others.
Oh, yeah, lots. I couldn't even name them all. Yeah. But, they tend to be sort of like me, just kind of getting started out, kind of unknown. So we worked it out, and he said he was interested in producing the album, and I was just floored. And
just for the record, which song was it you covered?
For the Ashes.
Okay.
It was off of their most recent album.
And so he gets that, and he replies, did you have a moment of, I'm being punked?
Well, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was actually really hilarious. If nobody else was at home with me that day, I was probably screaming and running all over the house. I can't believe that just happened.
So you guys actually got together, and he produced this. And so he helped you put all these songs together, and he performs on it, too. You said earlier that he played some of the instruments on this, so...
Yeah, actually, I wasn't sure when I got started how I was going to handle the recording of the album because he lives in Paris. So we had to work out sort of a remote way of doing many songs on the album. Were a combination of me at home setting up a studio, not really knowing how to do it. He gave me some advice on equipment that I needed. So I set up and learned how to record some things at home that were album quality, not just demo and covers that you post on YouTube and things like that.
To clarify, when you say he was in Paris, you don't mean Paris, Tennessee.
Right, Paris,
France. You mean Paris, France. He's all the way over around the world.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing all this collaboration online. So
a lot of it was. He did come to Nashville toward the end of the process. We recorded 5 songs, or most of the tracks for 5 songs together in person in Nashville. But most of the tracks were actually recorded remotely, either at my house or at his studio in Paris. And then the drums were recorded in New York. All over the world, so everything was file sharing, sending back and forth, and it got mixed in Ken's studio in Paris.
Now, does that include Second to Last?
Yeah, that was actually one of the ones we primarily worked on together in Nashville.
Well, tell me how that song comes together.
I wrote that one. That's one of the more recent songs. The album is full of songs that are quite old to me and then also quite recent. And that's one of the more recent ones from the perspective of someone who very autobiographically, it tells the story of someone who thinks that their opportunity to do some of the things that they wanted to do in life, that the opportunity might have passed.
Well, you've had the subject matter come together fairly easy. So what about the music behind it? Was that easier to put together or harder?
I do lyrics and music oftentimes separately. I'll come up with a lyrical idea when I'm doing something else. And then when I finally have the chance to sit down with the guitar, I will try to come up with something that musically matches the mood of the lyrics.
Well, let's see what you came up with this. This is Second to Last. It's Gretchen's Will, the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. It is the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7, and this week I have with me Gretchen's Will. Lindsay, you've been fabulous talking to us about some of the songs that you've put together. You've got an album, and it is available.
Yes.
Let's talk about where they can find that online.
It can be downloaded on Bandcamp, gretchenswheel.bandcamp.com, or the CD can be purchased at Bandcamp as well. It is on iTunes, on Amazon. Those are the main ones. It's also on Spotify.
And you do have a website.
Yes.
Just central place to send people. Easiest way to do it. What is the website?
GretchensWheel.com.
Just go to GretchensWheel.com and you can find links up to all this stuff, and
Yes.
including the bio, which is where we got some of the conversation points that we had tonight, talking about her collaboration with Ken Stringfellow, and just very interesting read on there. And you can listen to some of the samples on there too. So, and I'm guessing, of course, you're on social media.
Yes.
You're talking about being on Twitter earlier.
Right.
Facebook as well.
Yes, Facebook.
So now, do you get out and do performances? I think you said earlier that it's just you and a guitar when that happens. So
I haven't done a great deal of live performance. I've done some open mic nights, and I just recently did a show at a place called The Lodge in Lafayette, Tennessee. That was the first real performance that I had done. That was a full length, that was just me.
what was that like?
Oh, it was great. I was pretty nervous. I'm not that comfortable with live performance at this point because I have not done enough of it yet, obviously, but I think it went really well. There's videos on YouTube of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's linked up again at the website there. So
it can be found under Gretchen's Wheel. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel called Gretchen's Wheel. So
I'm guessing we've got plans to start doing more performances.
possibly, yeah, I would definitely be interested in doing some more acoustic stuff. I don't have a backing band, so sadly I can't really reproduce the sound that you hear on the album. The full band rock sound, won't. But the acoustic sound is nice too. So it's a totally different side to many of the songs.
I think one of the lead performers here recently on the rock scene made the statement that if you can't play your music through on the guitar, then you really shouldn't be playing it.
Yeah.
They said that they were able to play their whole album on just an acoustic guitar, and that's the way they liked it. So really, that's not a bad thing. It's a good way to hear music.
That's the way that I wrote the songs originally. That was just me and an acoustic guitar. So it's kind of like basically getting back to the basics of how the song first sounded before there was any production or, any additional ideas added to it.
Now, are you leaning towards, I want to put together an album again at some point? I'm guessing right now you're really just kind of promoting the one that you just did.
Yeah.
But are you leaning more towards, I want to put out an album versus EP?
I've considered doing an EP because basically with the songs that I have written and nearly written, I'm nearly there when it comes to having the songs ready for an EP. But in some ways, I almost feel like it's not cheating, but it's kind of like I love to get a full album because most of the time my practice is to listen to the album from start to finish if it's something I really love.
So more of a full picture as opposed to just a quick snapshot.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand the environment of people wanting to only buy singles, and it's definitely cheaper to put together an EP, so that's definitely a major consideration for me too.
So you've got plans to just kind of get out there and do some more performances and do things like that. I'm sure you'll have that up on social media and checking out more venues. And for now, they can go see performances through YouTube, find out more information at your website.
Right.
GretchensWheel.com. That is the place to go. Thank you so much for coming all this way down to talk to us and getting to know a little bit about your music and where it comes from. So
thank you for having me.
This has been the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7.